In a week which saw Sony take to CES to reveal truly groundbreaking news about the upcoming PS5 logo, which amounted to them deleting a 4 and adding a 5 to last gen's console branding. And a week which saw AMD share further insights into their next-gen console hardware via faked images of the Xbox Series X. Surely Big Phil Spencer could have given them access to his Twitter avatar a day early. Anyway, let Binary Arcadia take you through the big news stories from the week, chasing shadows in the games industry. Hello and welcome to the BA News Show. You're joining us this week for a rundown of all the news. So what have we got for you this time? Well, we have got Alienware's new concept for a portable platform. We've got Switch Pro news and some sort of bit further breaking news on Breath of the Wild 2. So let's kick off with Alienware's new hardware. So they've unveiled what they're calling Concept UFO, which in essence is basically a handheld PC by the looks of it. Incorporated screen, incorporated, we'll call them Joy-Cons.
Switch clone!
Because let's face it, it looks a bit like a Switch clone, but it's a fully fledged PC. It's running a modified Windows operating system, so there's obviously something they've done to make it run on this piece of hardware. It's an 8-inch screen with 1200p resolution. It's 3 times as heavy as a Switch, which I think tells you all you need to know about the hardware inside compared to the Switch. More on that shortly. As I say, it runs a custom Windows 10 OS, which I think is important. And it is only a concept at this point. It looks really, really cool, actually. And there's a few little nods on it to their gaming division. For the like, there's a few bits on it that make it look a little bit like our Area 51 laptop.
I was going to say,
really
Rich,
cool.
like the little honeycomb
yes,
detail.
How good does that look?
Yeah, I mean,
so good.
as a piece of kit, you know, we obviously really appreciate the Area 51M and that kind of range and the way it's designed. It certainly looks the part, doesn't it? I'm not overly sure on the size. It's pretty large, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
it is large.
And I think they've had some feedback on that as well at CES. But
I mean, the one thing you would say is the Switch is... The thing is that you can't really put a Switch in your pocket. You sort of can, but this takes it to the realms where you cannot put it in your pocket, absolutely. So that's interesting.
You've got to weigh it up. It's about the use case at the end of the day and the customer, the audience they're going for. I mean, an 8-inch screen is great because you can just see more of what's going on and, you know, potentially more immersive because of that. And the res is massively up on what the Switch can do from 720p on the portable to 1200. So yeah, it's going to be interesting where this sits, but it's a concept. So,
and actually, we differ a little bit on this one. So the Switch is about a 1 teraflop sort of console, roughly, and I think this will probably be around the similar 1 teraflop, and that's based on the fact it's using integrated graphics. It doesn't have a dedicated GPU inside, and the Intel integrated graphics, which it's said to use, we don't know what iteration of that, but the latest iteration that they've announced for that is a teraflop, basically. I know you, Tabs, think probably because of its size and weight, you're thinking a bit higher than that, aren't you?
Well, one, it's PC games, but it's portable PC games. And I mean, you know, how are they going to... If that's the audience they're courting a little bit, they're trying to make it a bridge, perhaps, into, you know, to handheld gaming, then I just don't see how they can't try... They're going to have to punch above the Switch for me. And also, price-wise, we know that the Alienware range is generally very expensive, and they are the place for cutting edge tech. So I just don't see, you know, I think this is going to be priced at, I think it could be £800 plus. I honestly do. I know that sounds extreme, but
couple of Switches for that.
Well, I know. But I just can't see them just being level pegging, especially that it's larger, 3 times the weight of the Switch. Apparently people on this on the floor of CES have said that it's got extremely loud fans. So, you know, if it's got that kind of cooling in it, my guess would be at least 2 times the power of the Switch, so maybe 2 teraflops, and I think it might get a significant overclock when that's docked. You know, I think maybe 3 teraflops, maybe more. I don't know.
The only thing I'll say with that, Tabs, it's only got a 90-watt power supply.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough in terms of power and performance and that trade-off to speak about it with great information. But yeah,
I think you wanted to make a note here. So we view the Switch as like a companion piece. So it's like a really simple way of getting into console gaming. But you think this is sort of the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, the Switch has been a companion piece, and I think it's quite well documented that a lot of PC gamers who traditionally have stuck to the PC and not bought consoles, the Switch has actually been a way for them to, get their foot in the door as such with console gaming and experience that in a slightly different way. So it feels to me that this is, another way to bridge between console PC gaming, perhaps to get casual gamers on board with the with PC gaming a bit, because we know the barriers for entry when it comes to PC gaming, and if you want the best experience, it means buying cutting edge tech. I mean, that's a little bit of a paradox as such, though, because I've already said that I think this is going to be really expensive. So it's difficult. I don't quite know where to place it at the minute, but I think for sure it's got to be £500 plus, hasn't it, Rich? Sure.
Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah, almost certainly. And actually, that leads us on quite nicely to the next piece of news. So we've got Alienware's sort of iteration into sort of a portable handheld. Well, have we got something new on the way in terms of a Switch, Tabs?
Yeah, so we've had a bubbling of Switch Pro rumours this week. So the main reason for this piece of news is that Taiwanese site DigiTimes has apparently let slip that there's a new Switch model about to go into production. And the rumour being that this is going to hit mid-2020. So, it all kind of makes sense in terms of next gen that we expect to be revealed, well, sometimes this year in a lot more detail than it already has been. Hopefully E3 will be a joyous time of seeing some real next gen footage. So absolutely. A mid-2020 drop, maybe just post E3 after it's been revealed, potentially. Could be a good time. So what do we know in terms of detail about the Switch Pro? Not a great deal at this moment in time. I think there's a suggestion that it might just be an improved CPU, not necessarily GPU. There's been speculation previously that we might see the next version of the Tegra X1 chip that NVIDIA introduced and produced. I'd love to see that personally. I think it's a really good opportunity to double down on both the CPU and GPU for longevity. But we also know Nintendo's history of scrimping when it comes to hardware and relying perhaps a little bit too much on their software, which we know, Rich, is brilliant. We love Breath of the Wild, and
absolutely,
But what are your thoughts, Rich?
Well, I think if they're going to do this, it needs to be a more premium model, and I think there's certainly some rumours out there that we may see a magnesium body, which would be a good thing. It'd give it a more premium feel. You get that in sort of high-end laptops.
We've seen some warping issues with the Switch. We've seen cracks.
Actually,
so
in general, we've seen, unusually for Nintendo, some build quality issues. Nintendo normally make bullet-proof hardware, but actually the Switch has had a considerable amount of issues, and actually that's one thing that I would say that they need to double down on, because Joy-Con issues, the way the Joy-Cons go on is not the best. The screen seems to scratch very easily. I think there's things that they can improve just straight out the box.
I think it was rushed to market a little bit, wasn't it, on the comparative failure of the Wii U, and they had to get moving on it. So probably why.
But yeah, I mean, I'd really, really like to see a double upgrade on this. I'd like to see a CPU and GPU. My gut is sort of telling me we're only going to see a CPU, which disappoints me, but here's hoping.
I mean, the silver lining to that, just very briefly, Rich, is that with a CPU upgrade, they could still potentially transform the experience in as far as resolution and frame rate goes. If we could see a fairly standardised 60 frames per second across the board for most games, and then in line with that, when you dock it, you get 1080p for the most part, maybe on lesser demanding games, even 4K. That will transform the experience still, won't it?
Absolutely. I guess ultimately, if you're going to compare this to, say, a PlayStation or an Xbox, and a PlayStation 4 Pro, and a PlayStation, and an Xbox One. Is it Xbox One X? What is
Xbox One, Xbox Series X.
No. So if you
the Xbox One X, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, that's like their middle iteration where they've improved it. I'm sure you got graphics and CPU upgrades on that, so it made it worthwhile upgrading to it because you were getting 4K resolutions, better frames, and we're actually side-by-side tests me and you've done on Death Stranding. You've seen faster loading times, truer colours, although that may have something to do with the TV I was using. So I feel like they need to push the boat out on this because this is their chance to sort of go, those people are getting twitchy feet about moving on. Should I get a next gen console or should I stick with my Switch? Well, actually something more purposeful for the Switch Pro that might sway the way.
And surely the success of the Switch is going to give them some sort of confidence to say, okay, let's be a bit, take the risk on this one and just
absolutely
put the investment in there, and we'll get the back end out of it. But if it is just a CPU upgrade with a magnesium chassis, I'll probably still buy it.
There we go. Endorsed by Tabs. So, best game of all time for the channel, Breath of the Wild, is getting a sequel, Breath of the Wild 2. Some more information about this last year.
That isn't news, just to let everybody know.
Yes, we already knew that. That was announced at E3 last year. That was big news back then. But we have had some little, some bits of information come out this week. So a Famitsu poll came out this week that Breath of the Wild 2 was actually one of their readers' most anticipated games of this year or of the next couple of years. And while we are hoping to see Breath of the Wild 2 this year, it's not nailed in, and the main reason for that is the time it took to create Breath of the Wild. I think it took 300 developers, like people working on it for 5 years to build Breath of the Wild, and given the fact that came out in 2017, we're only really 3 years since that's completion. Now, I know it seems like they're saying it's in the latest world, in the same world, so potentially there is some saving there.
Assets, engine, they can all recycle that. Honestly, mate, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see this year on that basis.
I personally think this is the jewel in the crown that basically takes people away from next gen. I love my PlayStation, that's what I'm into, but I've got a Switch. And one of the main reasons I bought a Switch was because Breath of the Wild was that good. It got such good reviews, and having then played it, it's amazing. So I think that is a real jewel in the crown for Nintendo, and they need to double down on it and try and get it out this year.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not necessarily stealing sales from PlayStation and Microsoft. They just need to stay selling alongside them as a companion console, and that needs, as you say, the relevance.
Exactly, that's the most important piece to take about this relevance. How do they stop people jumping ship, or having their head turned for that matter? And I think that's how they'll do it. A Switch Pro potentially tied in to Breath of the Wild 2, and or even a Switch 2 that they could come out with. And there's some suggestion, and we have heard this, and I think this is maybe a sketchy rumour from 4chan that suggests that we may see a Switch 2, Switch Pro combination drop with Breath of the Wild 2, sort of January next year, so a year away from today. My gut says we're going to see Breath of the Wild 2 before that.
I think that 4chan posting, Rich, I think that might have been a little while ago. So that might be kind of old news, and it might have been based on a previous timeline. So yeah, who knows? If there's more credence to this, Switch Pro drop, then maybe that we could see a bundle. I'd love to see a Breath of the Wild 2 and a new Switch Pro bundle sometime after E3.
Oh yeah, I'd be all over that.
Yeah.
Yeah, after I've spent all my money at E3, I'll be all over that.
Yeah, we'll be broke, but we'll be loving life.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the only other thing to say is that we know that Nintendo Japan have recently tweeted that there are some job listings out there for people wanting to be scenario planner or level designer on Breath of the Wild 2, so they seem like there's a ramping up. So there are signs there that suggest that we are going to see Breath of the Wild 2 in the short term, I think.
What's that? Can you hear that, Rich?
This is breaking news.
It's been breaking news while we're live. Unbelievable. just suspend your disbelief there, BArcadians. So, news in today as we record this. Pokemon, there's been a Pokemon Direct. And yeah, shady or not, so apparently we're going to see 200 new but existing Pokemon put into Pokemon Sword and Shield. So we know there was a big controversy previously about...
Are those the ones that should have been there at the start tabs?
Well, some might say, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, has this been wrapped up? Was this a plan all along, or is this a response to the, you know, the audience reaction? I don't know if we'll ever find out for sure, but, you know, if you're a Pokemon fan, this is only good news, isn't it? And what else have we got beside that? Well, let's have a look at this breaking news report I'm reading. So, we've got a couple, I think, these are like expansion pass and story drops. One's called the Isle of Armor, the Crown of Tundra, which I think also... encompass new regions
nice.
in the actual game. So that's going to include new stories, new Pokemon as we've discussed, new wild areas, and new styles. I don't quite know what that last bit means, but...
So is that fighting styles? Or
potentially,
Pokemon styles?
yeah, it could be fighting styles, couldn't it?
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Pokemon fan, I think this is only good news. I think there's a game pass that you can buy, like an expansion pass, Rich, and you get all of those all in one.
Yes, I think that's what I'd read.
As they drop. But yeah, if you're a bit more of a cynic and like me, somebody who's fallen a little bit out of love with the Pokemon franchise and where it's been heading, yeah, it's itchy beard time, and there might be some questions to ask about what are they called, Rich? The Pokemon Company. But yeah, what about you, Rich? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's quite from me. I think it's quite a sizable update. Whether some of it should have been in the original game or not, that's for others to discuss maybe. But I think it's fairly sizable, I would say. So that can only be a good thing. I actually got Pokemon for Christmas. I haven't started it yet. I haven't even uncellophaned it yet. I've had so much going on. So yeah, I mean, it's all good. Something that I'll definitely be getting once I've worked through Pokemon, the original game. So yeah, I think it's good.
To be fair, yeah, friend of the channel, Raid, I have had a chat about him with the game, and I think he enjoys it. You know, yeah. I think he sees there's things that aren't perfect about it, but you know, for the most part, it's still got the Pokemon bones to it, so they're always going to be fun. So yeah, that's the breaking news for today, Richard.
Well, I think that's all we've got time for on this BA News show. Another one for the archive.
Stamped and completed.